A Step into the Past Volume 16 Chapter 10. Book 16 Chapter 10, Numerous Difficulties and Dangers. Under the Yu sisters' miraculous hands, Xiang Xiaolong saw his restored appearance reflected in the bronze mirror. The two ladies were filled with the sorrow at the thought of parting, and could no longer banter with him as usual. Xiang Xiaolong was also a mass of worry due to the matter about Su Xian. Huang Hu had related the account himself. He had been captured by Li Yuan at the city gate just as he was returning from the mission. 3,000 men had departed but only 700 returned. The battle must have been intense. Under torture, Huang Hu revealed that one of Liu Bui's spies had been concealed amongst Su Xian's 500 attendants. That was how they were able to mount a precise ambush in a valley near the Wei border. Huang Hu personally shot the fatal arrow. Under the Qin soldiers' death-defying counterattack, Huang Hu suffered many casualties and beat a hasty retreat. Some of his men were even captured. That was why Li Yuan was so vexed. Lord Longyang also feared that Liu Bui would use the fact that the incident had happened in Wei as an excuse to mobilize an attack against them. Tracing to the bottom of the matter, the ringleaders had always been Tiandan and Liu Bui. The most hateful was Tiandan's deliberate stirring of conflict, hoping to profit from the turbulence. After Xiang Xiaolong had heard the whole account though, his spirits rose as it was actually unknown whether Su Xian was really dead. Nonetheless he had determined to set out at dawn to hunt down and kill Tiandan. Tiandan had left Shaochun only with slightly more than 100 close followers. To avoid Chu's customs checkpoints, he had to take a roundabout route. On the other hand, Xiang Xiaolong had the assistance of the Chu people and could take shortcuts. That is why even though they lagged by 2 days, they had a very good chance of intercepting Tiandan before he crossed the Qi border. As he rose to leave, the Yu sisters couldn't help throwing themselves into his embrace. They only sent him out tearfully after repeatedly imploring him to visit Dian whenever he had the chance. Madame Zhuang intercepted him outside the door and pulled him into a room. Only after a lingering kiss did she say plaintively, "After tonight's separation, we may never have the chance to meet again. Xiaolong ah, why is your feeling for me so ephemeral? I wished to serve you on the mat, but never got the chance." Xiang Xiaolong forced a smile and said, "The way things developed was beyond all our expectations. Madam need not be so broken-hearted, however. Perchance I will be able to steal some time off in the future to come and visit you folks." Madame Zhuang rejoiced and said, "The gentleman has spoken." Xiang Xiaolong replied, "The fast horse is whipped." He reached out his hand and teased her chin. As he gave her a sorrowful kiss, gentle feelings welled up from the bottom of his heart and he softly said, "Don't cry. You should be laughing instead. Take care of Beiyi. I believe that we will meet again someday." Put together, the two phrases that Madame Zhuang and Xiang Xiaolong said means something like "A gentleman's words are as good as gold." Reference can be found here. Madame Zhuang replied, "I will be returning to Dian the day after tomorrow. If you visit us on your way back to Qin, I will laugh for your pleasure." After sharing hardship for such a long period, he would be lying to himself if he said he hadn't developed feelings. Although he was in a hurry to kill Tiandan and return to Qin, under the present circumstances, he could not refuse. Only after another round of intimacy did Xiang Xiaolong extricate himself and leave the room. Everyone in his party was packed and ready to go. Li Yuan was talking to Lord Longyang, Han Chuang, and Teng Yi. Seeing him arrive, he pulled him aside and said, "I just saw Yan Ran. My heart is actually comforted. Indeed it is only you who are a match for her. I am too eager to pursue fame and fortune, power and influence." Xiang Xiaolong silently faced him and patted his shoulder, saying, "I was just a little bit luckier. If Brother Li had met her earlier, in reality she has always admired you." Li Yuan sighed and said, "Just based on vision and aspirations, I am already unable to match you. Hey, Xiu'er wants me to wish you a pleasant journey." Xiang Xiaolong thought about Guo Xiu'er and his heart became sorrowful. At this moment, Teng Yi came to hurry them, saying, "We need to set off." Everyone left together and mounted their war horses. Ji Yanran and the ladies had their faces veiled, shielding their exceptional looks from the eyes of passers-by. Lord Longyang, Han Chuang, and Li Yuan sent them off personally. Under the lead of the Chu soldiers, they galloped towards the inner city gates. It was still before dawn. The pitch-black sky caused everyone to taste the bitter sadness of parting. Will they ever meet again? Worse, Qin and the 6 southeastern countries were constantly at war. The possibility of having to face each other in battle caused everyone to be all the more melancholic. Xiang Xiaolong thoroughly abhors war, but it is one of the most inevitable realities in this era. As they approached the palace, a horse carriage protected by a company of horses and men raced out and cut them off. "Looks like Li Yunyan has arrived." The royal guard captain Du Gui galloped over and said, "The Empress Dowager would like to see Master Wan and invites Master Wan up the carriage." Xiang Xiaolong, whose face was covered with a bamboo hat, nodded and mounted Li Yunyan's horse carriage. Horses and men proceeded towards the inner city gate. Li Yunyan removed Xiang Xiaolong's bamboo hat and dreamily sized him before saying in approval, "Xiang Xiaolong is much better looking than Wan Ruguang. No wonder Xiu'er is unable to forget you." "Oh. I am not saying that she lusts after your charm and intelligence. Rather, your present manner and temperament is a better match for your words and your lofty and heroic ideals." Xiang Xiaolong smiled and said, "Hadn't Empress Dowager decided not to send us off? Why did she change her mind unexpectedly?" Li Yunyan threw herself into his bosom impulsively and hugged him with all her strength. She panted, "This is the reason." Thinking about how we might not meet again, Yunyan could not help being depressed and dispirited. If there is a day when Xiaolong feels that he cannot prevail over Lu Bue, the doors of my great Chu is always open to you. With the beauty's great favor, and thinking about her desolate and humiliating past, Xiang Xiaolong's heart was kindled. He lowered his head, found her scorching lips and gave her deep kiss before baring his heart and saying, "I seldom regret missed romantic relationships. However, reflecting on the coming days, thinking about how I missed the opportunity to share your quilt and pillow, to enjoy the kind of silence speaks 1,000 words and one spring night beats 1,000 pounds of gold kind of good times and beautiful scenery with you, I can't help but feel the greatest regret." Li Yunyan's heart and mind were both intoxicated. She said, "Nobody's words of endearment are as beautiful as yours. Still, what is the use of regret? Going by our speed now, it will take at least half a day before we reach the docks outside the city. There is much we can do." Xiang Xiaolong said in shock, "Are you saying?" "Hey!" Li Yunyan pasted herself on his cheeks and said plaintively, "Who would know?" "Xiang Xiaolong, didn't you just say that one spring night is better than 1,000 pounds of gold?" As Xiang Xiaolong embraced this woman who was praised as the most youthful and beautiful Empress Dowager in the Warring States era, all sorts of feelings welled up in his heart. "You have to give it to XSL. This is about as flowery as it gets. I can't believe that lousy honey parable that he ripped off so long ago is still having such a great ripple effect all over the Central Plains." He had known her but for a few days, but felt as if it had been for half a lifetime. Perhaps, Li Yuan aside, he was the one who understood most her bitter experiences and inner world. He did not know if he loved her more or pitied her more. But undoubtedly her beauty was sufficient to elicit uncontrollable feelings of adoration in him. The most tragically romantic thing is that this relationship can last but a moment. That is why Li Yunyan cast off her majesty as Empress Dowager, forsaking everything to send him off and to seize this last opportunity, ensuring that she would never be sad at having missed this short but ever valuable and memorable encounter. All of a sudden, he melted. What happened within the carriage was unreal. Just like a deep and intoxicating dream. They lost all bearing of where they were. The setting sun descended west. 3 large ships had set sail, following the river Huai towards Chu's second largest city. Xiang Xiaolong found Shan Ro standing alone aft of the ship. Curious, he asked, "What is Sister Ro doing here?" Shan Rou irritably replied, "Can't I have some peace and quiet?" Xiang Xiaolong went over and tentatively embraced her shoulders. Seeing that she only flashed him a glance without making another move, he was relieved and kissed her cheeks, gently saying, "If we can kill Tian Dan this time, would Sister Rou be willing to return to Xianyang with us?" Shan Rou softly and warmly leaned into his bosom and lightly said, "I am used to a wandering lifestyle, treating the world as my home. I am afraid that it would be difficult for me to remain in one place. If I have to see the same people every day, how tedious it will be. I am not suited for family life." Xiang Xiaolong nodded and said, "This I understand. Hanging around the ends of the earth is certainly a fascinating way of life." Shan Rou asked curiously, "Aren't you upset that I am so unfeeling?" Xiang Xiaolong laughed nonchalantly and said, "Why should I be angry? What you said was an incontrovertible truth. When one eats the same thing over and over again, even the most exotic delicacies will taste like wax. However, you should at least come to Xianyang to see Shan Lan and her son. Your sister misses you so." Shan Rou replied, "I will go to Xianyang someday. However, I have promised someone that I would spend some time with him once this matter is over. We'll see what happens then." Xiang Xiaolong forced a laugh and said, "Is that your new lover?" Shan Rou whispered, "I really shouldn't be telling you this, but I don't want to lie to you. I don't know if it was because you had aroused my passions. After we parted, I had a few men, but none could replace you. This man that I intend to spend time with once rescued me from certain death and nursed me back from serious injuries. My feelings towards him started more as gratitude." Xiang Xiaolong was actually filled with jealousy, but on reflection realized that he had had relationships with many women. It was only right for Shan Rou to enjoy relationships with many men. Laughing with relief, he said, "Elder sister should do whatever she wants. Even if you are married with children, please do not forget to visit us in Xianyang. Moreover, you have to do it before the Qin crown prince ascends the throne, else you may never find us again." Shan Rou turned her head and gazed at him for a long while before saying in astonishment, "You are truly exceptional. All other men have become crazy with envy when they learn that I have another man in my heart. You are the only one who is completely unaffected. Don't you care about me one bit?" Xiang Xiaolong stopped smiling and said, "This is wrong, that is also wrong. What do you want from me?" Shan Rou's face displayed an eccentric expression, and with a sigh she said, "It is precisely because you are a true blue Weitu that I Shan Rou am unable to forget you. That is a very painful feeling. Still, I just cannot give up my dream to wander the world. When I am tired of it one day, I will come look for you guys. Will you turn your back on me then?" Xiang Xiaolong released her from his embrace and lazily stretched himself before saying dully, "Don't be oversensitive. As long as you deign to come to Xianyang within 7 years, you will definitely find us." Shan Rou stamped her foot in frustration and said, "I won't yield." Xiang Xiaolong has never seen her act like a spoiled little girl. He was astonished, saying, "What won't you yield to?" With a face full of irritation, she said, "What, aren't you reacting like other men? It's as if you couldn't care less whether I come or not." Xiang Xiaolong bellowed in laughter and said, "Don't you want your independence? I am refraining from interfering with your way of life, yet you are blaming me. What kind of logic is this?" Shan Rou pondered this for a while before giggling and pouncing on him with a hug. She raised her face, which was pretty as a flower, and smiling enchantingly she said, "You are different from everybody else, it's no wonder that I want to be intimate with you." Xiang Xiaolong gently said, "Sister Rou should enjoy your life fully. That is everyone's fundamental right. If I say that I was not jealous, I would be lying to you. It's just that I felt that it is not my right to control you. I can only suppress my selfish desires and respect your freedom." Shan Rou was moved and said, "This is the first time I've heard anything sensible from a man. But will you love me any less because of this?" Xiang Xiaolong calmly replied, "I will never change my love for you, but will force myself not to think about you so much. This is because I will naturally remember that you might be in the arms of another man. That will cause me to be very uncomfortable. Everyone is self-centered after all. Shan Ro gave him a kiss and then tenderly and softly said, "You are very honest. In reality I am also wary of thinking about you for the same reason. I actually regret telling you this. It was only after parting with you that I realized that I could not forget you." Xiang Xiaolong softly kissed her lips and gently said, "Since this is the reality, both of us should accept it. It is time for dinner. Shall we return to the cabin?" Shan Ro stubbornly shook her head and said, "No, I am afraid that I will lose your love one of these days." Xiang Xiaolong mirthlessly said, "Elder sister should stop pulling my leg. How could you be this kind of person? You are merely dissatisfied that I did not react to your affairs with other men as expected. You just want me to surrender, that's all." Shan Ro stamped her foot again and said, "I hate you to death. Quickly say that you are jealous to death." Xiang Xiaolong laughed and bent down saying, "All right, I am jealous to death." Shan Ro happily said, "This is more like it." "Oh. I was just bluffing you just now. No other man has impressed me yet. But don't be too happy. That includes you. Come." She then grabbed Xiang Xiaolong's hand and led him back to the cabin. Under the light of the wind lamps that can resist the wind, Xiang Xiaolong, Teng Yi, Ji Yanran, Zhao Ji, and Shan Ro sat in a circle on the banquet mat studying the map of the Chu-Chi border that was spread on the coffee table. Teng Yi said, "After my careful study and analysis, I believe Tiandan has at most 3 possible routes back to Qi. The first is to make landfall and discard his boat, ride furiously towards the Fulai Pass and then buy a ship at Zhongli and return to Qi by water. The second is to select a few good horses at Fulai Pass and follow the official roads through Peng City, Miao Hill, and Qiang all the way to the Qi border. The last route is the most circuitous, that is to go east past Mingshan before returning to his country. I have traced the routes on the map in different colors, you should be able to understand at a glance." As Xiang Xiaolong and the rest were pondering the 3 lines, Shan Ro asserted, "There is no need to consider this further. This person Tiandan loves comfort. He is sure to have selected the water route. Also, the governor of Zhongli, Xiaoruzhang has always been close with Tiandan. What's more, Tiandan does not know that we are hot on his tail. How could he trade the easy for the difficult?" Ji Yanran said, "If this is so, we might even be able to reach Zhongli before he embarks." Everyone nodded their heads in agreement. As Tiandan had pretended to go to Chengyang by boat the day he left, he had to go against the current westwards for more than 10 miles from Shaochun before abandoning his boat and proceeding by land. After that he had to go into the countryside to buy horses for his 100 over people before heading for Fulai Pass and Zhongli. With so many delays, he had naturally taken more time. This person was certainly cunning and despicable. After he had instigated Lord Chun Shen to assassinate Su Xian, he slipped away immediately, leaving the Chu people to deal with the consequences themselves while he safely remained away from the furor. Zhao Ji said, "I am a little puzzled as to why Tiandan is in such a hurry to return." Ji Yanran suddenly blanched and said, "Not good. I think Tiandan wants to deal with Yan." Teng Yi was also jolted and said, "Prince Dan is in danger." Xiang Xiaolong also realized what was happening. Lu Bue and Tiandan's collaboration was based on mutual benefit. What Lu Bue fears most is an alliance of the 6 countries, that is why he has always courted Tiandan, not only hoping to keep Qi out of the alliance, but also hoping that he can damage any alliance between the other 5 countries. That Qin armies were powerless to resist the recent incursion by the 5 countries' allied army further reinforced his thinking. At the same time, he knew that Chu's past bitter experience would prevent them from allowing Qin to nibble away at the 3 Jin states' territory, hence he abandoned Chu as an ally in favor of Qi. Of course Tiandan knows that Lu Bue is wildly ambitious, but he knew it was always better to rely on oneself than others. Being strong was the only way out for Qi. In this era of war, the only way to become strong was to swallow other countries, expanding one's territory. At the present, Yan was like a juicy pork chop as it had been greatly weakened by its fight with Zhao. Tian Dan wasn't doing any favors for Liu Bue either. For instance, the assassination of Su Xian will actually intensify Qin's internal power struggle. This can only benefit Qi. Also Liu Bue should have had to offer something in return. One possibility was to have Prince Dan killed within Qin's borders. If Yan loses this tower of strength, its loss in morale and strength will be incalculable. Tian Dan would then find it even easier to invade and occupy Yan. With the abrupt question, they were all suddenly clearer about Tian Dan and Liu Bue's conspiracy. Ji Yanran somberly said, "If we cannot kill Tian Dan this time, Yan will be finished." Shan Ro ground her teeth and said, "This time he will not escape." Ji Yanran replied, "Zhongli Xiaozhang is intimately related with Tian Dan and may notify him after hearing news of us. If he switches to an overland route, it would be difficult for us to pursue him." Xiang Shao Longheart was stirred and he said, "Since this is the case, we should beat him at his own game. We should deliberately frighten Xiaozhang to determine where Tian Dan is. Then he can forget about returning to Qi alive." 2 days later in the morning, the 3 big ships sailed into Zhongli's large harbor. Xiaozhang came to find out their purpose. The commander in charge of the Chu soldiers was Li Yuan's trusted aide called Li Guang. He was extremely astute. He went down to meet Xiaozhang on receiving Xiang Shaolong's instructions. After he had let Xiaozhang inspect the military order that Li Yunyan had personally signed and sealed, Li Guang lowered his voice and said, "We have come to the east this time on a secret mission." Xiaozhang started and asked, "What is the matter?" Li Guang pulled him aside and replied, "The general must have heard news of the matters in Shaochun." Xiaozhang forced a smile and said, "Not only have I heard rumors, I received the official communiqué yesterday. It is hard to imagine that Lord Chunshen would end up like this. He must have been senile." Li Guang said, "He was not senile, but mistakenly trusted a villain's words. Not only did he send men to kill the Qin envoy who was en route to the late king's funeral, he also mounted a rebellion. Empress Dowager and Minister Li were furious, ordering us to lead an army to hunt the person down. General Xia should know who I am speaking of." Xiaoru Zhang's expression changed repeatedly. He gravely asked, "Could General Li be a little more explicit?" Li Guang replied, "Who could it be other than the treacherous bandit Tian Dan? Does General Xia have news of him?" Xiaozhang's limbs shivered and he said with difficulty, "No." Li Guang knew exactly what was happening, but did not expose him. He whispered, "Tian Dan has to be escaping by water. Can General Xia order people to resupply our 3 ships immediately? I wish to set sail before dusk." Of course Xiaozhang could not refuse. Li Guang then left him alone and returned to the ship. After Xiaozhang instructed his subordinates, he hurriedly returned to the city. At that point, Xiang Shaolong had already infiltrated the city. With him were the 3 ladies Ji Yanran, Shan Ro, and Zhao Ji dressed in men's clothing, as well as Teng Yi, Jing Shan, Wu Guang, Wu Yan, and Wu Shu and the rest of the 18 guardians, and finally Li Guang's deputy Cai Yang. Since they all had official passes, entering and exiting the city was no problem. As Xiaozhang reached the city, he rushed back to his residence without pause. It was broad daylight. The general's residence was also heavily guarded. Xiang Shaolong and the rest could only sigh at the high wall and split up to monitor each entrance, waiting for nightfall. Fortunately for them, it was not long before the Xiaozhang in civilian garb and 2 household warriors slipped out the back door and rode quickly towards the south gate. They were all delighted and followed from a distance. Xiaoru Zhang went straight out of the south gate and proceeded across the countryside. At dusk, he arrived at a manor concealed in the woods. Outside the forest grove, a river flowed from the northwest, joining with the Huai River 5 miles downstream and flowing east. There seemed to be a small wharf there, with 4 large fishing boats moored. They all rejoiced. Teng Yi said, I will go and clean up the boats and the men in them. Third brother should enter the manor and deal with Tian Dan. Be careful, Tian Dan has many followers and they are mean. Leading half the guardians, he headed for the wharf. Xiang Xiaolong exhorted Ji Yanran, saying, Yanran should lead Ji and remain outside the manor, using the crossbows to stop anyone from escaping or to kill them. I will infiltrate the manor with Sister Ro to see if Tian Dan is inside. Ji Yanran gave a terse affirmation and spread out with the rest. Xiang Xiaolong gave Shan Ro a signal and they both infiltrated the manor quick as the devil. In a short while and without incident, they arrived at the underbrush along the manor's eastern wall. As this manor was surrounded by high walls, it was not possible to see what was happening inside from close up. At this point, the night had descended, the stars were in the sky and the moonlight was bewildering. Dim light escaped from the manor. The two of them used a rope to straddle the high wall and noiselessly dropped into the open courtyard behind the wall. Xiang Xiaolong and Shan Ro climbed up the roof ridge of the nearest residence. They saw rows upon rows of rooms and for a moment did not know where to begin. Shan Ro whispered into his ear, Tian Dan likes south-facing houses. Let us look into that block. Xiang Xiaolong looked towards where she was pointing, but only saw landscaped gardens in the south. These gardens were filled with flowers and trees, ponds, and miniature rock mountains and pavilions. A brook flowed through the garden, forded by white bridges. It was peaceful and tranquil. The other half was filled with high buildings. With one look, one could tell that this manor was a summer retreat for high-ranking officials. It was probably also Xiara Zhang's private estate which Tian Dan was borrowing for his use. Without speaking, the two of them vaulted over numerous roofs in one breath. They came to the center of the manor and discovered human voices and images on the other side of the little bridge. The two of them did not dare to be careless. They kept their distance and using their grappling hooks, they traversed the treetops towards another tall tree on the other bank of the brook before dropping back to ground. Thus they bypassed the sentries. Next they climbed up to the roof of a tall brightly lit building. Human voices carried up from below. They heard Tian Dan's voice saying, "Is this for real?" Logically, Li Yuan should not have been able to overcome Lord Chun Shen. The next voice was Xiara Zhang's, saying, "It's definitely true. I received Empress Dowager's official command yesterday to monitor the mountain pass closely." The communiqué copyright also announced that Li Chuan, Li Ling, Doji, and Cheng Suning had all been publicly beheaded. The two of them rejoiced and could help giving each other a kiss. That's Xiaolong and Shan Ro, not Tian Dan and the Xiaogai. I'm sure you figured that, equals. After untold hardships, they had caught up to the old thief Tian Dan. Tian Dan was speechless for a while before coldly snorting, "Li Yuan is really foolhardy, sending people to hunt me down. Zhang, why don't you follow me back to Qi?" Xiara Zhang sighed, "My family and property are all here. How can I go at will? We can discuss this matter later. The most important question now is how to plan for Minister Tian's safe return." After a pause, he continued, "They managed to guess that you would return to Qi by the waterways. If Minister Tian leaves by the land route, they will chase empty air. I think Minister Tian should not wait for General Dan Chu anymore. As long as Minister Tian returns to Qi safely, no matter how much guts Li Yuan has, he would not dare to touch Dan Chu and the rest." Xiang Xiaolong did not have any more interest in their conversation. He kissed Shan Ro again and said, "Second brother should have cleaned up the people at the docks. Let us create a little confusion, are you ready?" Shan Ro's eyes betrayed deep emotion and she whispered, "I have waited for more than 10 years. Xiang Xiaolong raised the signal rocket in his hand. The fireworks flew skywards and exploded into a blood-red flower of light.